Hello, hello. My name's Hannah Ringham, and I am applying for the MFA Advanced Theatre Practice course. So, following the guidelines, this is what I'm going to do. Just looking at my notes for this distance interview. I'm going to introduce myself and why I want to do the course, and then follow with a very brief example of my work. And then I'm inviting the practitioner Sue McLean to work as a little collaborator on a conversation about the Aesop fable, Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, where I'm going to read a small bit of creative writing in relation to the text, and just note the interest and interesting points and what comes up. So here goes. So yeah, just to start with, to introduce myself, I have a background in immersive theatre, new writing, and live arts events that explore the audience's presence and integrity as part of the play. Yeah, so I've been doing that for about 20 years, and I am in the process right now of developing my theatre practice in fundamentally new ways. So last year, I received a grant to develop new strategies for new theatre projects, considering the relationship between the community and the live theatre event. And this has led to new ways of thinking about my work overall, and potentially new artistic and producing collaborations towards future projects. So yeah, it just feels that the MFA Advanced Theatre Practice course would be an opportunity for me to further this, to interrogate some of the important questions on my work as part of a focused study in a collaborative way with other contemporary theatre practitioners who are emerging and thinking about work in new ways. And then this, together with the support and guidance of the tutors and the mentors, I think this would really help me to think and create this new way of thinking carefully and with some depth as my new projects are developing. So yeah, I suppose the last thing to say about why it feels like I would really like to do this course and it feels like the right time is that the pandemic has really been a time to think about work again and just interrogate fundamental questions about what I'm doing, how I do it, who it's for. And last year with this grant I got, I really invested in these questions with professional arts collaborators. And in this changing time in the industry, it just feels like it would be a really healthy way to establish some new thinking in my practice in relation to the new thinking that's happening around us now in all kinds of different ways. Okay, so that's why I would like to do the course, and then just to follow with an actual example of, very briefly to mention some pieces that I'm working on that have a relationship to this. So one piece was a show called Dial Run, which was a one-woman performance comedy that was about social anxiety in a social event, inherited 80s political thinking within that society, and it's set in an 80s disco. And so the big thing about that was the story of this woman amongst people at the disco. So the sort of individual and the collective event at a disco, the social event of a disco. And the story interrogates her life in relation to the policies that happened in the 80s with Margaret Thatcher, and the idea of the self and the glory of the individual, and that in disco and in 80s disco's tunes. So I did that piece, I began that piece, it followed with a discussion, that's important. I did that piece, I began that piece about 3 years ago. It was an Arts in Mind Award with King's College, and I worked with social anxiety disorder experts. And I developed that piece, and it went well, and it was being previewed, and then the pandemic came. But I received this grant to interrogate my work and my practice, and using that piece, I have. Well, not using that piece, but in relation to that new piece and the idea of the event and the discussion, I'm in the process of developing a new work called Think Disco, which is thinking in new ways about process and community and the live event, and how the audience is part of its growth, discussion, and the disco. So, yeah. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I'm now going to just briefly share my promo video of Dial Run, which I think, gives just a flavour of the themes of the euphoria of the individual, of themes of anxiety or anxious, edgy person, and relentless disco, and just a feeling of that intensity, which was part of the show. So it's very short, but I'm going to play it. Okay, it was very short, but this is a brief distance interview, isn't it? So I hope that just gives you a bit of a feeling. It's to do with the disco of the mind. Yes, yeah, social anxiety, mental health. Yeah, there's lots more to say about it. Perhaps I can talk in conversation at another time. So now I'm going to invite Sue McLean. And we're going to have a discussion.
I'm consenting.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue McLean. So hello again, this is Sue McLean, a fantastic theatre practitioner who I am collaborating with, and she has kindly agreed to connect with me on this small exploration of the Aesop's fables as suggested for the distance interview. So the one that I've chosen is the wolf in sheep's clothing, and we're just going to have a initial discussion about that. So thank you, Sue.
All right. Why did you choose that one? I mean, I'm genuinely interested because it's such a terrible one, in my view.
Why is it terrible? Tell me why it's terrible, and then I'll tell you why I chose it. Or shall I just tell you why I chose it first?
Tell me why you chose it.
Well, I had a little look through, and I guess the thing for me that struck me is the idea of lying, and yeah, that was the first thing, that this idea of the wolf is not telling the truth, or the idea of truth, and that somehow that leads to his demise.
Right.
And that feels like a question for me.
Yes. I mean, that makes that, sorry, go on.
Go on.
Well, I suppose for me, I'm just trying to get my water, apologies, is whether or not disguise is the same as lying.
Yep. Yeah. I guess I took it in a sort of simple way, in that way, as in the theme of lying. And then there were two sort of other things that that interested me. And when I was reading it a few times, it became about, and it's something that we had sort of touched on before, is the idea of hunger and greed. And I found that sort of really interesting in terms of this idea of this wolf. Why is he doing what he's doing?
Yes.
Is he really hungry?
Yeah.
Or is he really greedy? And also, can he be both? And then that line between those two things started to become interesting to me.
Yes. Well, I suppose they're all hungry, aren't they? In a way, because the lamb is hungry for affection.
Yeah.
Hence following. And the shepherd is hungry, more on an aesthetic hunger than a survival hunger.
Yeah.
But hungry nevertheless.
Yeah, and I guess I was questioning the moral a bit that they put at the bottom that says, you know, like, deceit is your downfall, or the deceiver. And I was just wondering a bit about that. Like,
yeah,
you know, like you said, they're all sort of in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like the wolf's just the baddie.
No, exactly.
Like, you know, the shepherd just went out and killed them. Yeah. I just went out and killed this.
Yeah. I mean, you did wonder slightly why the wolf didn't bite him when he grabbed him.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a bit sort of, I find these things quite difficult to engage with, because I just go to a very sort of pragmatic place of like, did he put it on like this when he got into it? Is it zip up?
Yeah. Did he put it on like this? Yeah, exactly.
Did he put it on?
How did he put this? How did he put this thing on?
Sorry, distracted.
No.
But it shows those elements of it just make me like, I can't do anything other than, I can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just started to also think about the fables themselves. And, you know, so, you know, in my brief research, not a lot of research, I have to say, but in the little bit of research, I understand, obviously, it's this idea of this person from ancient Greece.
Right.
And they were a slave. This is all the things that come up. They were a slave from ancient Greece who told stories.
Okay.
Now we have these stories, and I keep on thinking, what the hell? Like, what's the journey of that? And I guess, like, there's a sort of universal idea about it, but like you, I was sort of looking at it thinking, what is the detail of this?
So is that before the Bible?
Yeah.
These were before the Bible.
Yeah. Yep, ancient Greece. And a slave, like, what's that information about?
Yes.
A slave telling moral stories.
Yeah.
And just how it ends up on the computer now.
Yeah. I mean, phrase, I like the phrase, a wolf in sheep's clothing, but I suppose not, but you know, it feels like, certainly in terms of politics, that everybody is that at the moment, and nobody's coming to harm because of it.
Yeah, I guess in a sort of simplistic way that connects to what I was thinking about the idea of lying, and that it was just an obvious thing, and that word is just being used like all over the place all the time at the moment. And so what's that about in terms of if we say, oh, that's just fine, or or you know, I mean, I think, you know, just for it to start to become interesting is when it's not moral, or yeah. So you were saying like it was one of the bad ones. What was some of the good ones too that
Oh, I don't know, but I mean, that was, it's just, I was like, when you said we're going to talk about an Aesop's fable, I was like, okay.
And then you got it and you were like, what is this? What is this? They're all like that. There's just super short.
Yeah.
Like I guess the other thing for me as well, because when I started to think about it, where is this interesting? Animals. It's like, you know, what's the animal thing?
Yeah.
And then I started to think about the greed and hunger thing, and the idea of us being animals.
Yeah. But also the thing, I mean, I suppose, you know, if I was part of the flock, I'd never trust the shepherd ever again.
Yeah.
Because he just came in and decided to kill one of them.
Oh yeah.
You know, so if I was part of that flock, I'd be like, guys, we need to go because shepherd has turned on us. So I mean, I think for me, if we're talking about just the content of the thing, for me, the shepherd is worse than the wolf.
Right.
Because the wolf is just following his survival instincts, whereas the shepherd is trying to eat something because of an aesthetic, because he wants a particular taste. It's not just for survival. So he's killing for pleasure. Where the wolf, I think, is just killing because that's what he does. That's his job description, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the first line is, a certain wolf could not get enough to eat because of the watchfulness of the shepherds.
Yes.
And I guess if we go with could not get enough to eat.
Yeah.
Whereas, but it happened that the shepherd took a fancy.
Yeah, exactly.
For mutton broth.
I mean, none of them are very good at their jobs, basically. The shepherd is killing things from his flock that he's supposed to look over to. The lamb is too silly and so wanders away with anybody. And the wolf is not that good a wolf if can't avoid the watchfulness of a shepherd.
It's true. I mean, I guess, you know, I was sort of, I kept on thinking of, you know, like you said, the idea is that the wolf is the baddie, but I just kept on thinking of, sorry to be so like literal, but like the shepherd is the system. You know, the shepherd's the one that's got all the monopoly and like all the sort of thing. It's just like doing what he wants. And but I guess there's a sort of idea, I suppose I took on the idea of the wolf and the shepherd, there being this hunger or this desire. And some of the wolf is about hunger and some of it's about like, what do I want? And the shepherd as well is like, I just want it, so I'm just going to have it. And I guess I was sort of equating that to sort of ideas of greed. and you know, I suppose the only thing the thing that starts to become interesting for me about this one is that line, which we touched on, I think, about this idea of desire or greed, and that being something, a want or a hunger. And, yeah, the sort of lines between those two. And then I guess, as a sort of general thought, the wolf is an animal and the person is a person.
Yeah.
And it's like how we understand sort of civilized thinking around those 2 points. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I mean, if it didn't have the moral at the end, I mean, we're just not very good now with morals, are we, in those ways, those sorts of, and I suppose in our work and in the work of contemporary performance, it's very rare that we say, and the meaning is this. We very rarely sum up, you know, as artists, or, you know, in the work that we make. And so it's really odd for me to have that defined, you know, as if I can't make up my own mind, partly, but also, why do you have to tell me what the moral is, you know?
Yeah. And I guess the same for me, because when I read this, I wouldn't be choosing to look at fables.
No,
I wouldn't be choosing to look at it. So for me, it's like, when I read it, I was like, well, where's the question?
Yeah.
Where's the question in it?
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that. And I guess the question for me is connected to what I just talked about, the greed and hunger thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So now I'm going to, if this is okay with you, Sue.
Yeah, of course it is, babe.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this. So I am going to just
to say, just before, it's really interesting. I think it's interesting in terms of our sort of collaborations and the things we talk about and the work that we make about, and I speak only for myself, about how little that inspired any conversation in us.
Yeah.
You know, and there's something really interesting about that, like, because normally, and what that is about, I suppose, because mostly you and I and most collaborators within, you know, who are in our circle, it's really hard to bore us, you know. Isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, usually we can't sort of shut up.
Yeah.
But there's something about the prescriptiveness of that.
Yeah.
That where it says this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and the reason is, and here's how it's defined, which absolutely stultifies any conversation, because there's no openings in it, or there's few. You have to work really hard to find them. I would have to work really hard to find them.
I agree with that. I think there's something interesting in the fact that we don't want it.
Yeah.
I mean, in that like,
exactly,
work that we make is all about conversation. And so in essence, what that is about is not having a conversation.
Yes, exactly.
It's about, do you understand the moral of this?
Yes.
And I guess for me, like, taking this brief and reading through the fables online and thinking, well, what's interesting about this? What's interesting about this? I guess the 2 points of interesting that are about is what I've mentioned about looking through the content and thinking, well, here is some polar points, the shepherd and the wolf. That is there an idea of, you know, greed and hunger. But then the other thing for me is, who is this Aesop?
Yes, yes.
You know, where the hell do these things come from, and what is this form that has ended up at this point that I am not interested in, if you like?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I think the other thing that I found interesting was that there's a slave telling stories. Like, what? You know, you know, the whole origin of it, if you like what is the process that's ended up with this thing? And who cares? Like, really, like, who really cares about this? Like are these moral stories out there that are being morally taught? I would say I don't know. That's happening, but maybe it is in ways that I don't know about.
And also, clearly, if it was originally written as a sort of educative, with an educative purpose, it's failed miserably, because we now have more wolves in sheep's clothing than we've ever had before. So it's never, you know, if it was a warning shot across the bow for people to change their behavior, it's failed. But
I mean,
I suppose for me, that thing of like, you know, how it totally disengages one as an audience, or as a it doesn't provoke.
It's not doing its fucking job, is it? Let's be honest. I guess that's where I started with it, because for me the lying thing was like, now, just in a very crude way politically, that word is used on a daily basis in terms of our government, and yet you know, just in a very literal way. And like you said, I think it's a question as to whether there's lying in this. Disguise is lying. I guess I just picked that up. But in relation to what you're saying of the wolf in sheep's clothing and the sort of idea of that, which is just, you know, prolific, isn't it, in terms of like how we connect with the world now. So,
and also, if you look at something like Derek Chauvin, you know, he was murdering George Floyd. He was an absolute wolf in sheep's clothing. You know, and really an epitome of it, because he was wearing the disguise of a sheep. You know, he was, or maybe he was the shepherd, you know, because so everything that is dangerous, particularly I think to women, Black people, queer people, is all to do with probably sheep's and wolves clothing. You know, that as a woman, you're walking down the street and a guy comes up and says, you know, have you got the time, or I don't know, whatever they say. Do you know what I mean? They like give the appearance of being normal. And then they murder you.
Oh, Sue. But you know what that also makes me think about now is that quote from Malcolm X, which now I can't remember properly, about the fox and what is it? I don't know if it's a fox and a wolf, but there's an idea about fox and a wolf. It's, you know, maybe he was reading a lot of fables. There's an idea, you know, that you know, you have the side that's smiling, but they do the, you know, racist behavior by stealth, and then you have the other one that bares its teeth and you can just see it, and the one that trusts less is the one that's smiling.
I'm just looking it up, but there's quite a long, here we go, la 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 la, says quite a lot. Malcolm X, obviously. The white liberals are more dangerous than the conservatives. They lure the Negro, and as the Negro runs from the growling wolf, he flees into the open jaws of the smiling fox. One is the wolf, the other is a fox. No matter what, they'll both eat you. That's much more interesting.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm slightly forgiving Aesop now.
Well, you know, Aesop is, I mean, it could, you know, it's like what's happened to it over the years. What was the story like when he first, I keep on thinking of this slave telling these stories, and that's interesting. And that then seems to absolutely not directly relate to Malcolm X, but there are parables there that in some way.
I know that they're nearly always
not the slave thing.
No, but also people are nearly always slaves, aren't they? Like that's what makes it. Like if you just say there was a bloke whittling, I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like it's branding, isn't it? In that context, like here's some stories, and the reason you've got to listen to them is because they have grown out of a place of oppression, of being a slave. And look, even while indentured, the brain is free. So, you know, there's a sort of mythology, isn't there, in that thing of saying, look, the brain and morality has overcome even the worst conditions.
I know what you mean. I still find it interesting because I guess something that I've been thinking a lot about when my brain can take it on, is about the idea of the politics and the beginning of politics in ancient Greece. And the sort of crude thought that essentially Aristotle did a lot of chat about politics and he had slaves. I always find that thought sort of phenomenal in relation to what we live with now and the root of things. So in relation to a moral story and a slave telling it, and I guess if we take it into any political thinking at all related to morals or whatever, then or social situations, then I think, I mean, this is, I'm taking a bit of a stretch on here, but do you know what I mean? I keep on thinking I think of the slave in ancient Greece in relation to Aristotle. For me, is an interesting thought, I guess.
I mean, did Aesop write the fables because he was a slave?
Yeah, exactly. We don't, who knows? And like you said, I think there's obviously, ancient Greece is a long time ago. And everybody, and let's face it, there was a lot of Aesops, wasn't there? There's been a lot of Aesops since then.
Exactly. There's always a bloke. There's always a bloke with a moral.
Yeah. Will you? Will you?
Okay.
Start with your moraling. Okay.
Are you going to read your thing?
Yeah, I'm going to read it. It's short.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to change the view to speaker for this I know.
That's going to get you in.
Okay. So are you seeing, I'm seeing you on the screen, actually. That's
I'm seeing you.
Okay, so
what do you want to do?
I'm just trying to
get rid of me.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
I don't know how you do that.
If you hide self-view.
I've done that, but that means I can't see myself.
Okay. Let's just keep going with this. This is fine. It's just me reading it. It was an idea to, it could work either way. It was just an idea to, oh yes, I want to say a little thing more before I do it.
Go on.
I was thinking also about this form of being on a screen and the idea of trying to reach a viewer from the screen. So watching at distance, I guess, is
Yeah.
sort of connected or on a screen.
Yeah. Would you prefer to not see my face?
No, it wasn't. I mean, Sue.
No, but I didn't know whether you wanted to say it to an unknown audience. Because I could stop my video.
Yeah, maybe let's try that. Okay, yeah, let's try that. You can hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Let's do that.
Yeah. I am not hungry. I generally don't look at pictures of food. Timing. Sorry, I'm going to pause it there. Okay, again. I am not hungry. I generally don't look at pictures of food. Pictures of this and that and the other. You might be eating something. What would you be eating? Sometimes who needs to eat though? I mean, if you're just enjoying, really, really enjoying it, just enjoying the eating. I mean, if you were just really enjoying whatever you're eating, I mean, I wouldn't stop you. It's a free world. It is a free world. And you could give me a bit, not much, but a bit. I'm not hungry, but a bit would be fine. Okay, well, recording.
Lovely.
I guess there's something that like which we talked about before, which connects to sort of pleasure in it, or sort of greed and pleasure and hunger and you know, survival and pleasure. Do you know what I mean? That I sort of, I mean, it's a very quick piece, but just thinking about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, she's very whoever that was is sort of interesting as well, that it's not that she doesn't look at food, she doesn't look at pictures of food. I thought it's really an interesting way. There's quite a lot. There's more to explore. There's more. What that did for me was take it away from this being a piece about anorexia or disordered eating, you know.
Yeah, that's good. I guess there's a sort of idea in the moral of the story that in this, well, obviously there's definitely an idea of who's good and who's bad. And that's the thing, we're not interested in that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not about a victim either, or because, you know, I guess you could certainly say the lamb was a victim, and you could certainly say, I agree with you, I think you could argue the wolf is a victim, and the only one who isn't is the shepherd, really. So he loses one lamb. But that's that's sort of not the interesting thing.
No. It made me think about when women go out to dinner and they say, somebody says to them, do you want chips? And they go, no, I'll just have some of yours.
Yeah. I mean, sharing food.
Share, that part of my, we've talked about this before in terms of our project, but that thing of trying to own your appetite as well. So you're not being fed by proxy or by stealth.
Yeah.
Which is the thing of eating other people's food,
Yeah, because you can't say yourself, I want that.
You can't say yourself, I want chips.
That's what I want.
I want that, and I'm going to eat that.
Exactly.
So you get your needs met by, circuitous routes, which I suppose is the wolf as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the one that I like the most is the wolf.
Yeah, I like the wolf the best. I think the lamb is just silly.
Yeah.
And he was going to get killed anyway.
And then the shepherd is just like, I've just got it all. I can just do what I want.
Yeah. And to kill something, kill a whole sheep for a mutton broth.
Yeah.
Wasteful.
I agree. Okay, thanks, Sue McLean.
Pleasure, always good.
I'm going to press pause now.
Pause.
Thank you so much. And that's the end of the distance interview. Thank you.